It's a pleasure to be here in Brasov on behalf of InterEurope and to discuss some of the challenges and some of the solutions that we face in the UK. First of all, I'll use some statistical analysis of the recent couple of years in the UK market to allow you to maybe compare this to the Romanian market. And we'll also then discuss some of the bodily injury and moral damages issues that we face. As well as the bigger issue later on of the problem that the UK had with claims farmers, or ambulance chasers as they have been referred to, as well as touching upon some of the data issues that have been discussed earlier today. There has been some very interesting and innovative discussions already today, so I will follow that up now and go through some issues that have been faced in the UK. The UK is obviously a huge insurance industry, the third largest in the world behind USA and Japan. As you'll see some of the figures there to indicate the size of the market. It was discussed before that maybe the Romanian market is only as big as one of the major players in the UK. Fundamentally, this is possibly a logistical advantage for Romania in many ways. It's been discussed in the UK that the size of the market that we face is sometimes a cause of the problem. The UK motor insurance market did actually make a loss, and it from 1993 onwards for over 20 years. In 2013, the motor insurance market made a loss of £53 million. This is indicative of organisations and individuals taking advantage of a perceived to be a soft motor insurance market. And at the bottom there you will see there are some figures in the average indemnity payments in the UK in 2013. The average bodily injury claim was significant, which will probably allow you to compare this in relation to an individual bodily injury claim in Romania. The figure in 2013 was £11,292. That does include the third-party costs of that action. Interestingly, this is such a lucrative industry, people will seek to exploit that industry. If we move on to 2014, the population increased slightly. The claims notified actually decreased. This was due to the fact, in all likelihood, it was the start of the effects of the Jackson reforms that were implemented in April 2013, more of which I will discuss later. The bodily injury claims in the UK in 2014 accounted for 49% of the indemnity payments, yet only represented 9% of the claims. Again, this is indicative of a highly lucrative business whereby people are seeking to make overly inflated or even fraudulent bodily injury claims due to the amount of money that can be generated, of which I'm sure you're all aware when you are dealing with green card claims for your insurance companies that have taken place in the UK. I've got some statistics which I've obtained from the Association of British Insurers, the ABI in the UK. This simply just shows claims frequency, and it may be something that you can compare in the Romanian market. The middle line is for private cars, the red line is for motorcycles. Interestingly, possibly for the Romanian insurance companies here, the top line is for other vehicles. This tends to be commercial vehicles. These will be the vehicles, the Romanian vehicles that would be on the roads in the UK as a rule, and they tend to be vehicles that are maybe targeted or are involved in a higher frequency of accidents in comparison to private motor vehicles. This statistic simply outlines the level of bodily injury payment in comparison to other payments in claims going back to the start of 2013. This is purely for private cars, these statistics, but as you'll see, the dominant factor within the indemnity payments in the UK for any collision is always the bodily injury aspect of the claim. Again, this includes the third-party legal costs. The fact that this is such a lucrative industry means that whenever there is a bodily injury claim, in our estimate 99% of bodily injury claims, there are third-party lawyers and other organisations involved that are driving these claims. They're even creating these claims and pushing these claims to their absolute maximum. They are exaggerating them, they are using their own networks of experts, etc. This is a real problem in the UK, and this is one of the reasons why the government sought to legislate against this issue in April 2013. Again, this statistic simply outlines the scale of the bodily injury payment problem in the last 2 years in comparison to other claims. Once again, I'd point out that the majority of other claims are probably settled without the use of a third-party legal representative. Therefore, they don't have the issue of the third-party legal costs. The third-party legal costs often make up about half of the payment made for your individual bodily injury claim. When an industry like that is so lucrative, you will see the desire of these organisations to be involved in this hugely rewarding industry, and therefore there are the related problems. Again, you'll see the simple statistic comparing the years. The bodily injury, again, is significantly bigger than any other in the last 2 years. We have seen a slight decrease from 2013 into 2014 in the problem. This is probably due to the legislation that has been implemented. The government was forced to take action, which I will discuss shortly. When we look at the InterEurope statistics, we see that the bodily injury claim again is the highest. It represents approximately 25% of the indemnities paid, but equally, nearly as high as the bodily injury claim, you'll see the solicitor costs, the third-party solicitor costs are so high in the UK that the insurance companies lobbied the government, they enforced a change, and they sought to eradicate the issue of claims farmers. These were the guys that were locating claims, generating claims, most of the time fraudulently. They weren't legally qualified, they're not solicitors, they were simply middlemen who were creating a market. They were, to be completely brutal, they were not required in the market, they were simply causing a problem. They were causing a financial problem to the UK insurance companies, and equally the National Health Service, and the government suffered and therefore decided to take action. I won't go into detail on all of these slides as I'm conscious of the time, but when we look at personal injury claims that we receive in the UK, you have to have a very specialist team of legally qualified individuals who understand how to negotiate damages for pain, suffering, loss of amenity, bodily injury, moral damages. We currently use the JSB guidelines, which is a guideline for the level of damages that can be paid for each and every injury. This provides us with a bracket. However, you need to be strong in your negotiation and be able to negotiate against very sophisticated claimant solicitors in order to seek the best possible outcome for your insurer client. We also can use case law from previous cases of similar circumstance, which allow us to seek the lowest possible settlement on each and every occasion. It's very important for any insurers that are dealing with green card claims in the UK that they are dealing with strong partners in the UK that have this infrastructure, this knowledge. Another issue we face is credit hire. One of the important reasons why this is a real problem in the UK is simply because the credit hire is a phenomenon that occurred in the UK. The credit hire companies are often very closely linked to the claims managers, the claims farmers. They are often also linked to organised crime. This is simply a very easy way of making money. If these organisations get hold of the details of the claimant who is potentially injured in an accident and has vehicle damage, they will immediately place the claimant into a credit hire vehicle. This is a huge financial exposure for the UK. We have to have very strong best practice, proactive strategies to deal with these claims. We challenge them on various aspects, and as an example of a huge success, we actually received a claim for a Bentley Continental, which was £142,000. We challenged that and achieved a huge level of saving, but this shows you the level that these claims can reach. There has to be, in the UK, there has to be an overview of each and every heads of damage. You have to attack the claims on various different aspects, the material damage, the bodily injury, and ultimately third-party legal costs. There's the issue of fraud in the UK, and the way we have to deal with this is by having a holistic approach, a very proactive claims management, legal expertise, and attack these claims. We have to investigate absolutely everything. We are so aware in the UK of the problems that exist and the exposure that insurance companies face. It is so significant. It is a real epidemic. It was a cancer within the UK, and it has to be attacked. The insurance companies began attacking it themselves and the defendant legal firms, but then the government had to get involved as well. This is an example of various frauds, which I'm sure you are all very familiar with, but we see a number of different frauds in the UK. And again, I won't go into every detail of this slide, but we have to have very specific fraud strategies in place. One of the major issues with UK fraud and all of the other problems that we see involving claims farmers and hire organisations and experts that are linked to these organisations and even the organised crime aspect is that although maybe the UK is one of the more sophisticated or longer standing markets, a very mature insurance market, it has had to be very reactive rather than proactive to these problems. A big issue in the UK is as well that these exercises, these initiatives by the fraudulent organisations are being replicated and exported to other parts of Europe. We are seeing evidence in a number of different countries that the same organisations, the individuals at the head of these organisations are moving across Europe and replicating their business model in other countries. And it's so important that each and every country interacts with each other. We share this knowledge, we share this information, this data, and we attack these individuals and these organisations, as the damage they can do to the insurance market is so significant, as I'm sure you are all obviously aware. This is the reason why the government in the UK came up with a very significant overhaul of the UK motor insurance market. It realised that the third-party legal costs were really the issue that was out of hand. It accepted that there are genuine injuries and people do get injured in the UK. However, it realised that the industry was so lucrative and so rewarding that various organisations and individuals were creating accidents, exaggerating accidents, and selling on data to solicitors, claimant solicitors, who maybe are are slightly unscrupulous and lack morals, and would take these claims on at a significant price, and then they would exaggerate the claim because by virtue of how much their claim is worth, this is then dependent on how much the solicitor is paid. So Lord Jackson was instructed by the UK government to review the whole system. He accepted that the UK had a compensation culture. It was an expensive, lucrative epidemic. It was expensive for the insurers, but lucrative for the organisations. These organisations had no business being involved in legal claims. They were simply opportunistic. The third-party legal costs were out of control. Motor insurance premiums were going up year upon year. As I mentioned before, the motor insurance industry had made a loss since 1993. This is clearly a big problem if this happens for over 20 years, and it shows that people are taking advantage. The National Health Service was also struggling on the basis that people were having accidents because they knew what they were worth financially. So the government and Lord Jackson really went to attack the claims farmers, these case management companies, and link companies such as the credit hire organisations that we have discussed. For example, in 2011, it was stated that there were 500,000 road traffic accidents in that year. And the Law Gazette stated that there was a 32% rise in whiplash claims in the last 3 years. I think that was 2008 to 2011, but there'd been a 16% fall in road traffic accidents. So the claims were going up, but the accidents were going down. The roads had got safer, the cars had got better, the laws were stricter. There was no reason why claims should be getting higher, other than financial incentive. It certainly wasn't the fact that the people's necks in the UK were getting weaker. However, that may be one of their arguments. So Lord Jackson created this act, which was implemented on the 1st of April 2013. And really it covered a large number of areas, but for motor insurance claims, the crucial areas were that There was no longer a success fee for the claimant solicitors, so they no longer got the uplift on their costs if they were successful. This was tied into them banning the legal costs insurance premium, basically where they would go working on a no-win, no-fee basis. They were then receiving a success fee if they were successful. And this could be up to 100% if they were successful at trial. They would almost double their costs. The most important one was that referral fees were banned. This immediately eradicated the problem of the claims farmers. It became illegal to generate claims and sell the data of claims to a solicitor's firm. The claims farmers overnight were shut down. Now, there has been certain innovative ways that legal firms have maintained their claims farmers by maybe taking over the company and bringing them in-house and labelling them as a marketing division. However, fundamentally, referral fees were banned. This was the most important aspect that happened in the UK. The definition of a claims farmer in the UK there, via Collins English Dictionary, is a middleman who encourages people to make compensation claims against insurance companies and then proceeds to sell these claims onto a lawyer. It was discovered that claims were being sold for up to £1,000 per individual in the UK. So you can imagine the money that the claimant solicitor then has to make a profit. He has to make that claim worth a lot more than £1,000. So you get the exaggeration, you get the fraudulent element, you get the bogus passengers. You also get, obviously, the tie-in with the the credit hire organisations. And we saw the problem in the UK was evidenced by nuisance phone calls, text messages, presence on the high streets, in shops, and other unsolicited approaches. This overnight became illegal. It was banned to do so. You still do receive some, maybe more, which are now essentially black market organisations, because the government knew the risk was fraudulent and exaggerated claims, and it was damaging the economy. As I mentioned there, though, the problem will be that the UK model is being exported and replicated elsewhere. We all know that there are lots and lots of Europeans in the UK who are fully aware of the situation and how the system works, and they can simply replicate this back in different countries such as Romania, Poland, etc. We've seen problems. So some of the solutions that we've seen in the UK would be to obviously anticipate this epidemic. Don't let it happen in the UK where we were reactive rather than proactive. The insurance companies spent 20 years losing money and didn't really act until they lobbied the government in the last few years. The government didn't react quick enough. They didn't see the problem until it started affecting things like the National Health Service. And when the financial crisis occurred, they realised that their insurance companies were losing money. This affects the whole economy. Aggressively defend all claims, investigate absolutely everything, treat things with suspicion, develop and identify databases for individuals of concern, organisations that have fraudulent links, organised crime links. The most important thing, as discussed before, though, I believe, with database, that doesn't happen in the UK. Although we have a number of different databases in the UK, and they were discussed earlier. The main problem I would have with the UK data, as was also touched on before, is that there is a lack of sharing of data. People are unwilling to give this confidential information to each other. Insurance companies are now reluctant to share data. The data that is obtained is usually of the very minimal quality. There are too many databases, so these databases don't actually talk to each other. They don't interact with each other. When you ask for data from the police or the DVLA, they fail to give this data in time. It takes far too long to receive this data. We are very underperforming in respect of data. We may have a lot of innovative databases that started years ago. The quality of these databases and their usage is massively ineffective. And the insurance companies need to speak to each other. One of the big things I would say that, if anything, we've learned today is that it's so important for insurance companies to work together, share this data, protect yourselves as an industry, not as an individual organisation. Work together. The real advantage you all have is strength in numbers, strength in finance. You can defeat these organisations very simply by working together, using your resources, and eradicating this problem. Also lobby the government, make sure that it's a cultural thing where people are aware of this issue, and defeat the culture by being proactive and not reactive, as the UK had to be, and it was a very expensive process that we went through. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.